me that probably had its roots partly in your 2002 book, Hacker Culture. And shortly before that book came out, you testified to a congressional subcommittee about cyber terrorism and protecting critical infrastructure. And I just want to quote one line from the report, which is, here's the quote: "Hackers often have an antagonistic and oftentimes juvenile response to authority, often producing behaviors that appear to pose a troublesome threat." So I guess I'm wondering, should we be adding antagonistic response to authority as one of the elements of the gamer disposition?
Yeah, well, that's definitely, definitely subsists within that culture. The entire dimension of grief play, I think, is an example of that. We think about all the wonderful things that these spaces can do in terms of learning, in terms of education. There's also some dark sides. The idea that anonymity allows you to do certain things that you would never do in public. The ability to use technologies in particular ways allows you sometimes to take advantage of people. So at that level, I think that, maybe there is an aspect that allows people to act out both for good and for ill.
And so I'm just... your hacker culture, I mean, when you talk about hacker culture, much of what you talked about with this, I think the antagonistic response to authority, well, in many cases, the authority was Microsoft. And, I think a lot of people read your book as a defense of the people who are hacking Microsoft's operating system and other operating systems that maybe aren't paying as much attention to security as they could. So I guess I'm wondering, I mean, when I go forward from O2's Hacker Culture book to Second Life today, I mean, should I be reading this as a defense of griefers? And that's a new term to me, by the way. The grief play is a new term, and I see a couple people are raising virtual eyebrows on that one. So do you defend that type of behavior?
Wow, it's an interesting question. No, the book was more an effort to explain that in large part what I saw happening with hackers, particularly kids, was that as they moved into the world of technology, they were doing exactly the same things that a lot of teenage kids do growing up. Instead of spray painting the underpass of a freeway, they were hacking into facing web pages. Instead of peeping into the neighbor's window at night, they were peeping into Microsoft servers. But the stakes were raised so much for two reasons. One is that we were hitting a point where people started to have a real serious financial investment in networks. And secondly, because there was a huge gap in understanding between parents and kids. So the adult authority knew that technology was important, but they didn't know it as well as some of these kids. And that produced a huge amount of fear and a huge amount of anxiety around who hackers were and what they were doing. So in terms of a defense, my reading on this was that the way in which the media and popular culture would portray hackers was almost always more about the anxiety that we all felt about technology than it was about anything the hackers were doing themselves. And I think that we actually find the same thing happening around Second Life. If you go read the collective wisdom of the New York Times, Business Week, and every other periodical, they will tell you that Second Life is either about making money, and therefore it's good because you can become an entrepreneur, or it's about breaking up relationships and destroying families, and it's bad. There's a sense in which those are the reflections of what our culture feels and the anxieties we have around technology. And, I haven't made a whole lot of money in Second Life, and it's yet to break up my relationship, but I still managed to do a lot of things here. So I think, almost all of us fall in the middle. And not that those other things don't happen, but that there is a kind of sense of anxiety about things we don't understand, particularly technology.